everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. My name is Migdalia Gomez. I am the Community Engagement Manager here at the Harvard University Employees Credit Union. And today we are going to be talking about budgeting tips, and it's such a perfect topic given this time of year. I don't know about you, but holidays tend to be a time that spends more than I always intend to. So getting back into the habit here in the new year to sticking to a budget is really a good time to think about these things. A little bit about myself, and how the presentation will work today. We've all been doing webinars and Zoom for over, almost 2 years at this point with COVID. So same as other presentations, you'll be able to submit questions via the chat. If you have any questions at any point, just feel free to submit them. I always like to make sure that you are all comfortable with using the questions feature. So I always ask, where are you joining us from? So if you wouldn't mind using the questions panel, which will either be on the top navigation or on the right hand, it really depends on how you logged in. But if you wouldn't mind letting me know, where are you joining us from today? Okay, I see a couple people, Boston. Okay, makes sense. A lot of folks joining us from, working at BIDMC in Boston specifically. Thank you so much for letting me know. And just like you let me know where you're joining from today, if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, just use that feature. You'll also will get an email with today's presentation and the PowerPoint itself, the recording, and then some additional tips as well so that you have it. Oh, wonderful. I see someone's joining from Quincy. I see someone from, Quincy. Awesome. Thank you so much. So continue to submit questions or comments through today's session. Get us started with a little bit about what is a credit union, and specifically who are we at the Harvard University Employees Credit Union. So I like to think of a credit union very similar to a bank in the sense that we have the same products and services, but the biggest difference is that credit union are not-for-profit, meaning that the profit that we make, we give it back to the community. And we do that through a variety of different ways. Most recently for us at the credit union, we had a very profitable year, and that meant that at the end of the year, we were able to give away an additional $100,000 in charitable donations. So that's something that I was very excited to be a part of. And other ways that we give back is that we're able to reduce our rates, meaning that we can offer lower rates on loan products and then also higher rates on savings. So right now, actually, we have a checking account that has a 2% interest rate, which is very unheard of, especially in today's economy. So you can learn more about all of our products on our website. Everyone that is an employee of BIDMC is eligible to be a part of the Harvard University Employees Credit Union, and that's one of the difference between a credit union and a bank. With credit unions specifically, you need to have an affiliation or to be eligible to be a part of the credit union. And for us, anyone that works at Harvard, works at the teaching hospitals such as BIDMC, can become a member of the Harvard University Employees Credit Union. And once you're a member for life unless you were to close your account. And once you're a member, anyone in your household can also become members. That's all that I will say at the moment about the credit union. But if anyone has questions at any point, you can feel free to visit our website, huecu.org, give us a call, or just ask or reply to the email that I will send with which will have this presentation. So I'm gonna jump right in and talk about budgets, but we'll definitely talk about numbers. A lot of our presentation is focused on behavioral finance, tips on why do we do what we do when it comes to money. And the numbers, it makes sense, like, okay, need to spend less than what I make, I probably need to save money. So we know that that's a part of it. And we will definitely talk about those and give some best practices, but we want to focus on the behavioral piece first. Like, what exactly why doesn't it work sometimes? Or what is the ideal? So the ideal budget, or so the dream budget that I think we could all agree in, we want to have money coming in, money going out, and have a positive number at the end, meaning we want to have more than what we're spending. But life happens. There's so many different things that impact our ability to stick to our budget. I know, family obligations that will come up, that different advertising and temptations, constant 20% off a coupon, or buy one, get one free. But when you weren't planning on buying one, that's an additional expense. And then emotions, I know for some of us, when we are having a tough day, we may be more likely to spend, or maybe when we're happy and celebrating, or maybe celebrating someone else, maybe it's someone's birthday, or we go away on vacation and we spend a little bit more. So we know that there are all these different factors. And this is all to say that knowing our money personalities is going to really help us stick to our budget. Yes, we're going to talk about the numbers and how does that all fit in. But really, we all have different personalities when it comes to everything. We have a personality for work, we have a personality for exercise, a personality for cooking, for cleaning, for travel. There are different pieces of our day-to-day lives that impact how we do things. Managing our finances is no different. For us, one of the recommendations that I have is, and I can't unfortunately put the link right now, but if you Google Nerd Wallet Money Personality Quiz, you'll be able to take a very quick personality quiz. You can do this while you're on the webinar. It's a very quick, I will not take offense as you do this, but if you Google Nerd Wallet Money Personality Quiz, it's a very short quiz. I believe there are about 8 questions. And you'll get to know really what is your money personality. And that's going to be helpful because as we talk about different budgeting tips, some of these money tips may not fit with your money personality, and that is okay. There isn't one money personality that is better than another. It's more about awareness. And then once we become aware of how we interact with money, then how do we use those interactions to benefit us and our financial goals? There are 4 different money personalities. And again, if you just Google money personality quiz, Nerd Wallet, you'll be able to take that while you're on this presentation. One quick thing to check off the list. But the first money personality that we'll chat about today is the money avoidant. And this is someone that may just ignore their finances. So the fact that you're here at this presentation today, that's a good sign that if you are a money avoidant person, then you know what, great. You are taking steps because you realize like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to make myself because I'm going to try not to avoid my finances. If you are someone that fits under money avoidance, scheduling time to work on your finances is a really good strategy because it's essentially putting it on your calendar and creating a habit of addressing your money topics, whether that is I want to learn about buying a home, I want to learn about student repayment, whether that's I'm going to actually work on my budget, I'm going to review my expenses. Putting the time on the calendar makes a difference. This is something that I do myself, and it is helpful just to say, okay, Friday I'm going to do it I'm going to do this from 5 to 7 or whatever time of day, just so that I have it carved out. I'm prioritizing my finances, and this is very similar to when we prioritize our fitness or put time to go food shopping or cleaning the home or travel, everything else in life that we prioritize. And then there are folks that have money worship as a personality trait. And I should say, for all of these, you may not be 100% money avoidance. Most of us may be a little bit of all of these. I know for myself, I have a little bit of money worship, but also money vigilance, and money avoidance and money status. So I have a little bit of all of these, but I tend to lean stronger on one or two, and that is very common. And this could also change. It can change with time, but it's just a good starting point as we talk about budget and essentially how do we stick to our money resolutions. The money worship, this is someone who may believe that money will solve problems and as a result may sometimes overspend. It's similar to money status. Money status will also sometimes tend to overspend. So someone that is more in the money worship, knowing that, okay, I believe money will solve problems, utilizing that to save more money. So making sure that the emergency fund is very amply cushioned so that you have a good amount of money there. So when something comes up, then you feel more confident, like, okay, I put money aside, I know I can deal with that problem. Someone that has that may fall under money worship, though, when your savings aren't as high, that may create more financial stress because you feel, oh gosh, I don't have the money saved, something, the car is going to break or the computer or whatever it may be, I may not have the funds. So that is another way of thinking about your money personalities is how can I reduce the stress that money may be causing me? And then you have money status. These are individuals that sometimes, and it doesn't have to be that your money status on everything. It could be on a couple of things. Maybe it's on the restaurants you choose to eat out or the places you choose to vacation or the TV cable packages that you have or clothing, shoes, whatever it may be. It's choosing, even the coffee that you drink, it is choosing something that may cost more, some, labels, if you will, and equating it to your self-worth. This may if the finances aren't there, may cause then financial stress because you may be overspending. Money status sometimes, I will always say none of these are bad. We the way that we interact with money, it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing. It's where we just have to find and make it work for us. For someone that falls under money status, if you want to spend a high amount on an item, that is fine. That just means, okay, how do we work that into our budget? Does that mean that we save more in that category that we want to spend more money in and reduce the spending in other categories? So how do we shift our budget so that it allows us to have the lifestyle that we want? And then someone that's money vigilant, someone that tends to save more, focus on savings, and a lot of us will see this and say, oh, that's the best one. Not necessarily. Again, none of these are good or bad. They all have pros and cons. For someone that's money vigilant, you may be saving to the point that you may be missing out on experiences. You may be missing out on travel, eating well. You may be overly creating stress for yourself because you're not allowing yourself to enjoy money. And, we all know that we can spend money and it can bring us joy. And you have to find that right balance. So for someone that's money vigilant, when working on their budget, it's important for them to also put money aside towards experiences, towards things that bring them joys, whether it's a hobby, whether it's, a purchase that they want to make, but to make sure that they're allowing themselves the opportunity to experience and enjoy the money that they've worked for. So throughout today's presentation, I am going to make a couple of recommendations for you to, take notes. Of course, I cannot see you, so this is all on the honor system, but I would recommend making sure you have a pen or paper or having on your computer, however you'd like to take notes, just keep a list of things that you could do, either during the presentation or afterwards at some point. That way you walk away from today's presentation with some tangible action steps. The first one that I mentioned a couple slides ago was taking that NerdWallet money personality quiz. It's really quick, 8 questions, and it gives you a good indicator on what is your money personality and what are some things you could do to be able to work off of your money personality and have a better outcome with your budget. The second task that I have or recommendation is defining your financial goals. And this is something that I am going to do a little bit of what I call an awkward silence because I can't see you all and you won't be able to see me, but I am going to give you about 15, 20 seconds of silence to just think about and write down, ideally, a financial goal that you have. And we know how goals are or should be. So try to give it a specific date because it is the beginning of the year. Setting a goal for the end of this year might be a good one. But if you rather do a shorter term goal, that is absolutely great. I would recommend maybe keeping it to no more than this year. You want to make something that you can reach relatively soon. And it could be anything about savings, debt repayment, whatever you have in mind. Just be as specific as you can and take a couple of seconds to write down what is one financial goal that you have. And I will come back to this goal through today's presentation as we work on our budgets. So take a moment to write down what is one financial goal that you have. And continue to write that. I hope you had enough time to at least start thinking about it. If we were in person, I would give you more time, but with this virtual medium, awkward silence could be taken as, oh, she lost connection. So do take more time if you need to. And if you're watching this video at home, because we will have the recording on YouTube, just feel free to pause and write down that financial goal. Now, why is that financial goal going to be important? Because as we talk about budget, we're going to go back to remembering that we are budgeting because we want to reach a goal. We're not budgeting to deprive ourselves. And there are a lot of other behavioral tips that we have, one of them being goal gradient. So if one of your financial goals was, I want to save, and I'm always going to try to use fairly easy numbers just for quick math, but I want to save $1,200 in a emergency fund by the end of this year. If that is one of your goals, that might be a big number, a big number for some of us. For some of us, it may not. In this example, we use 10,000. So if I'm trying to save and I'm going to change my example again to go off of these numbers, but if I'm trying to save $10,000 in general and I have $0 in my emergency fund, that is overwhelming. To go from 0 to 10,000, what, I may just give up before I start trying. So knowing that a bigger goal sometimes leads us to failure because we give up, let's break down that goal. Okay, instead of saying, yes, I still want to get to that 10,000, but for this year, for 2022, I want to get to $3,000. So what does that mean? Well, it means a monthly goal of $250. Now, if I'm paid every 2 weeks, it's 125. That feels much more manageable to go from $0 to 3,000 or 1,500 by the middle of the year than to go from 0 to 10,000. Breaking down that financial goal that you had into smaller goals, you're going to be more likely to achieve it. And what tends to happen, especially as we're thinking about our budgets, if I'm trying to save $10,000, and let's say that I have already seen the benefit, I've already seen the progress, and I've already saved, let's say, $9,000. I've already saved $9,000 because I'm so close to that 10,000, I'm going to be less likely to spend on things outside of my budget because I want to continue to reach my goal. And how do we make this be a part of our budget? When we set up our budget, we set up a savings amount that we're putting money towards. And because we're putting that money potentially in a different account, we'll be able to see it grow. And the more we see it grow, the more likely we are to continue to add to it. There are a lot of different budgeting styles out there. I'm going to do a quick overview of a couple, and I will ask in the chat for folks if you have any tips on budgeting styles that you've utilized to just let us know, because we can all learn from each other. So there are a couple of different budgeting styles out there. I tend to like this one for the simplicity of it, but realistically, does it always work? Does it work in the Boston area? Sometimes, most times it does not. The takeaway here isn't so much the numbers, but the concept. So this one is saying it's a 50-30-20 rule. 50% would be on our absolute needs. And for most of us, that is home. We want to make sure we have a place to live, that we have food. So these are things that we cannot do without, especially in these cold times, heat. And then we have 30% that are wants. What I like about this is that you get to define what those wants are. Let's go back to our money personality earlier. For some of us, if we are more on money status, we may decide that, you know what, I need to have something that is more costly. And that is fine. If that is a need for you, that's fine. Then put that in the need category. And then in the wants, maybe that's going to be much smaller. So for some of us, that may mean I really care what I do for dining out, whether that's ordering out, going out to eat. I care to spend, that's a need. It makes me happy. I need to spend more money on that. That's fine. So let's add more budget for that, and then let's reduce other things that we don't care about. So maybe you don't care so much about clothing or other form of entertainment, so reduce those areas in your budget. As for savings, always want to include savings. We talked a little bit about emergency fund. That's going to be a big component. Retirement, I also like to think about your lifestyle. Let's go back to what brings you joy. If you're someone that likes to travel, or if you're someone that's saving for a wedding, child's education, a new home, whatever it is that it's part of your financial goal. Again, let's go back to that financial goal that we wrote earlier. Let's make sure we're putting that in our budget. We have to prioritize ourselves. We have to prioritize what we want. So let's make sure that that is a line item in our budget. Another strategy when it comes to budgets is called zero-based budgeting. I tend to like this one a lot because I'm a numbers person, so I like to basically see where every dollar is being spent. And that's exactly what zero budget is. Zero-based budgeting, let's say that we have $1,000 that we make a month, then yes, we're going to have the budget's going to start with that $1,000, and then we're going to put a line item for everything, for savings. So at the end, it should be $1,000 income, $1,000 expenses, and the month it'll end at zero. I know for some of us, we might be like, well, I don't want to have $0 left at the end of the month. It's not like you have $0 left. It's like you've categorized every dollar in a category. Well, that's exactly what a categories means, but you've assigned a dollar figure to everything. So for example, I would have savings category. I would have eating out, I would have electricity, I would have all my utilities. So at the end of the month, it's not as if, oh, I have extra money, I can spend it on what I'd like. It's putting you in control of, oh no, I said I was going to spend this much, so that's where that money is going. And then there's another budgeting strategy, which is basically we're sort of spending and hoping for the best. And, that is a strategy in itself because it means that we're not necessarily stuck on a specific strategy outside of, I'm just going to see what happens. So that is a strategy in itself. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, sort of the what the heck effect, that sometimes we could lose motivation if we spend more than what we anticipated. But just keep in mind that what you saved today, what you budgeted for today, it's still better than had you not done it today. So it's every day that you are on schedule, even if you go back a day or two, you're still progressing. You're, even stumbling is moving forward, as the saying goes. There are a lot of different budgeting tools to help. This is again where money personalities comes into play. For some of us, I know with a couple of my friends, and I'm not one of these people, but some people have an app for everything. So if you're one of those that has an app for everything, then having a budgeting app may be the best strategy for you because you tend to like apps. I am more of an Excel person, so my budget is in Excel. It's just easier. That's how my brain works. I in Excel mostly every day, so that works better for me. For some individuals, they rather have the cash in hand and say, okay, if I'm going food shopping and I budgeted $150, then I'm going to have $150 cash because I know that I'm not going to overspend because I have to physically give that money and I'm not going to utilize my credit cards. For some of us, we much rather have technology do it for it, do our budgets for us. And if that's the case, online banking budget may be best for you. And that is something that if you haven't checked, I would take a look to see if your primary financial institution has an online budgeting tool. Most of them have it nowadays, especially if you're using that credit card or debit card pretty frequently. They tend to be categorizing your expenses for you. If you mostly use the app on your phone, I do recommend going onto the desktop application if you don't see the budgeting piece on the app. Sometimes you need to activate the budgeting platform on the desktop and then it transfers to the app. But it is something, if you're already using your credit card or debit card, they may already be categorizing it for you and it may make it that much easier for you to know how much am I spending on food? How much am I spending on all these different categories? There are also different worksheets that are available. If you do prefer to have a worksheet, I will put this in the chat. You can go onto our website and we have all of our worksheets off of our Thrive page, which is our personal finance brand. And you can get a budgeting sheet if you want to, especially if you want to get started on pen and paper, it's a good way to do that. Knowing what our expenses are is probably the biggest part of creating a budget, and it is also the hardest because many times we don't quite know how much we are spending. And this is another one, if you're hopefully keeping a list of things to do, this is definitely one that I would recommend. It is something that I do, and I'll admit it is work. It is work to sort of track your expenses, and it can be very eye-opening because you may think, oh, I don't spend that much on, you know, whatever category it may be, but we end up spending that much. So there are a couple ways you can do it. You can track your expenses for 2 weeks and then go back and check your statements. For some people, they track all expenses and put it in at the end of the month. You know yourself better. You want to find the approach that's going to work best for you. Keeping in mind, if you track for a week or 2 weeks, there are some expenses that aren't weekly. There are some expenses that are more frequently or less frequent, so you just want to still plan for that ahead of time. The other things that you could do is set alerts for your spending. Most credit cards and debit cards have the option to give you either notification on your phone or an email or both to let you know that you've spent above a certain dollar amount. This is a good recommendation if you want a little bit of accountability. If you're trying to stay on budget and you're just like, oh, I didn't realize how much I was spending, setting these alerts can help. I especially like the email alerts because I may get a notification on my phone and kind of just, click on it and move on, especially if I'm using my phone for something else. But if I have it in an email, and typically what happens is if I'm out and spend the money today or right now, I won't see that email until a couple hours later. So it's a good reminder of, ooh, I spent that much, and then I can see all of the emails. And then another expense that we don't often think about, but tends to be one of the most costly, is the cost of our debt. So if you have any debt, whether that's credit card debt, student loans, mortgage, credit cards, take a look at what the interest rates are. How much are you paying every month to carry that debt? Right now, it is very good. It is a good time to look at possibly refinancing other than your federal student loans. If you have federal student loans, those are at 0% for another couple of months. So you wouldn't want to refinance those because 0 is the best interest rate when it comes to debt. So you don't want to increase that. But if you have any other debt, take a look. You can go onto our website. All of our rates are listed on our website. If it gives you a good starting point, compare and see, could you be paying less for that debt? That's a very easy way to automatically start saving more money. And that's money that you can apply to your financial goals that you wrote earlier today. Then there are a couple of things about reducing our actual expenses. So we need to know what those expenses are and then think about, okay, how can we reduce some expenses so that we could spend the money on what we want to spend it on? I like to think of budgeting not as essentially, with budgeting, you're not trying to refrain from having the lifestyle that you are. You're not trying to say, oh, I can't spend money on this, I can't do that. No, that's not what we're saying. With budgeting, you want to be in control. So you want to be able to spend the money where you want to be spending it. We're not depriving ourselves. We are instead shifting our priorities so that it is where we want it to go. And I talked a little bit about that earlier with shifting priorities when it comes to what are your wants versus needs, and you define those. So if you want to spend more money on entertainment, then find other things that you don't care about as much and spend less money in those categories. Refinancing, fairly simple to do, very straightforward. You can usually do it online. Just take the moment. If you do have debt that you're paying a significant amount of interest, or even if you're not sure, is it a lot? That could be another task that you add on your list. Maybe this weekend, spend a couple of minutes just looking at what are rates out there. Am I paying more than I should? And then there is evaluating if you need to make a lifestyle change, which, there are times that our expenses may be unsustainable. Like we may be spending so much that we're in debt every month. And that is okay if you're in that situation. There are a lot of resources to help. I will provide you a free budget counseling service. So if you wanted to speak to a professional that can help you with ways to reduce your expenses or ways to increase income, they can assist you. And then being a savvy consumer, so looking for discounts and ways to reduce your expenses. I won't go into too much when it comes to reducing our food expenses. I think most of us know this, and especially with the COVID era that we're living through, we know, most of us have been forced to do this. I know for a lot of people, especially during the first couple of months of COVID, they were saving more money just because they weren't eating out as much. They didn't realize how much they were spending on eating out. So we all know that cooking at home can save money, meal prepping, comparing supermarkets. I will add too with supermarkets, even if you go to a supermarket often, check their apps. A lot of supermarkets now are just giving away, money basically on all of their different apps. Target, I know, does it as well. So just if you are going to a supermarket and if you're not taking advantage of the apps that they have and the coupons that they offer, take a look at them. Even if you have your phone number saved with the supermarket, the app sometimes will send the coupons, but you have to click on the coupons in the app and it can save you a couple of dollars. It's just another way of being a savvy consumer. And then before going food shopping, which tends to be one of our biggest categories, making sure we're not going on an empty stomach because everything looks good when we are hungry. And then making a list. But I always say make a list with prices, because if we make a list of what we want, and this isn't applicable just to food shopping, this is really applicable to any time you go out shopping and are trying to stick to a budget, especially if you're buying gifts for folks, before you go into the store, have an idea of how much you want to spend on specific items. So if I'm going gift shopping, I'm going to spend $20 on this gift. Or if I'm going food shopping, I want to spend, about $4 on milk and $3 on eggs. It's then you can add up what the estimated cost will be before you get to the register. Because what tends to happen, whether it's food shopping or just anything else, we don't necessarily know how much we're going to spend. We're not usually keeping track until we see that amount at the register. And at that point, most of us aren't going to go back and return an item. We may just say, oh gosh, I spent more than I wanted to. So making a list and having prices will be a good way to help you stay on budget. And for those that may think, well, something may come up, that is fine. Just budget that. Give yourself, I'm going to, this, if something's not on the list, but it costs about 10, 20, whatever dollar makes sense for your budget, add that in there. Give yourself that buffer, or not even buffer, but the freedom to go outside of that list, but within parameters that you've set for yourself. Then the other one that's good for food shopping is just knowing what you already have in the house. There's a lot of food waste that happens, and just finding ways to, before you go food shopping, maybe set a rule. It's like, I'm going to go food shopping when the fridge is 25% full, or when I have utilized everything that I can. And everyone's household is different. I know for folks that have children, that would never probably work. For some of you, maybe like, oh, that actually could work. I could be crafty at cooking. So it's just finding what works for you. And then discounts. Discounts are a great way to save money. And this is something that I would recommend looking onto your BIDMC employer website. You may have a couple of discounts that are available to you. Sometimes there are discounts with the college that you may have attended. Also, don't just stick to discounts for yourself and your employer. Take advantage of those that are in your household, whether that, maybe somebody else in your home works at a different employer and they have discount. You can get discounts typically to lower insurance rates. You can get discounts on phone services. Some phone services, I know T-Mobile does this, they even have their own discounts just from being a member. And then financial institutions. I know for us, anyone that is a member of a credit union, there is I Love My Credit Union, which offers discounts. There are also discounts to tax preparation software, which I know tax season is coming up. So before going out and spending, take a look at what discounts can you be offered with your financial institution, especially if you with any of these. With this financial institution too, if you have a credit card with them, typically they will offer discounts for other services as well. But many times these are not hidden, but just not very apparent. So you may need to do some searching to find them. And now I'm going to open it up and just ask folks, how do you save money? And you're more than welcome to use the questions panel, just any money tips that you may have, because we can all learn from each other. So I'll give you some time to just share with us, how do you save money? What money tools do you utilize? Oh, I have someone that wrote, I use Mint to track my expenses. Thank you. And someone else wrote, coupons all the way. Thank you. Okay, and if anyone else has any other ways of how they save money, please let me know using the chat and we'll share, because we can all learn from each other. And then the reality is, we don't tend to like to hear this one, but it is something to be aware of. There are going to be times that we're going to need to increase our income. And that means knowing our salary and, do we need to ask for a raise? Do we need to see what we can do to get a promotion? Do we need to get a different job or an additional job? These are different things that no one likes to hear, oh, you have to increase your income, but we have to think about our finances. And if we're, especially where we're living, that things are so expensive, we may need to look for additional sources of income. And I know people that will do this during the holiday season. They'll take on an additional job to help with those expenses that come in. And that is just something that it should be a part of the conversation, especially if you're finding yourself concerned about not reaching your financial goals in a specific timeline. And here are some additional money tips that we wanted to chat about. And one of the ones that we have is what we call the no spend days. at the credit union, and these are not as hard as they used to be. Being in this COVID climate that we're living, it's much easier to schedule no spend days because we're not going out as much. But it is something that if you've never done, what it means is pretty straightforward. You just schedule a day. Some people go up to a week. I think I've managed to go up to 3 days. I haven't quite made it over past that, but these are days that you're not spending outside of some expenses that obviously your rent has to be paid, utilities, etc. But you decide for this day or for these 3 days, I am not going to spend. And it is a fun activity for those that have families to maybe try with them as well. It's like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to do something and not spend money, or just to do it on your own. Setting up automatic savings deposits. This is a really key one, especially when we think about our financial goals. If any of your financial goals that you listed at the beginning of this session, including putting, saving a specific amount, that is wonderful. Now there should be an account. Where's that money going to? So set that up. Check with your employer if you can have part of your paycheck automatically go into that specific savings account. And the reason that I'm saying a specific savings account is when we're saving, if we have a savings account that is tied to a goal, we're going to be less likely to use that savings account for something else. For example, if I have one of my financial goals is to save for a trip, and say that I'm trying to go to Alaska. If I'm trying to go to Alaska and I have the savings account that I've designated to my Alaska trip. Maybe I've changed the name, which you can typically do with online banking. It's pretty straightforward. But I know this is my trip account. I am going to be less likely to go into that account and take money out of it for something else. Because by taking it out, I am essentially reducing the experience that I'm going to have when I visit Alaska. In my mind, I'm going to feel like I'm literally parting with an experience, versus if I just have money in an account that has no goal attached to it, it's just money in an account. It's not as if I've already set up this idea of what I'm going to experience when I have that money spent. Another way of thinking of it, if you're saving for, buying a home, you're less likely to go into that home buying account and take money out because you wanted to go out to eat. Scheduling a budget date night, we've talked about this before. This is good, especially for those of you that have a partner that you share your finances with, or even as a family, just to talk about it together and collectively. And another saving tip that we heard from actually similar to one of these presentations where someone shared a tip that they had was rotating their subscriptions. So for most of us, we just can't consume as much media as we have available to us. So what some people will do is subscribe to Netflix for a couple months and then switch to Hulu or switch to another streaming services. That way they're not paying for services that they're not fully utilizing. And I said TV subscriptions, but it could be there are so many different subscription boxes nowadays. So it could be another type of subscription. Now, there was a lot that we covered today, but I do want to do a quick recap and just remind you all, take a moment and take a look at that list that you hopefully were keeping of what are your specific next steps going to be. I recommended knowing your money personality, taking that NerdWallet money personality quiz that you can Google, setting up a budget. And for setting up a budget, it doesn't have to happen in the same day. This is something I know I worked on my budget for 2022 a couple weeks ago, and it took me almost a week to work on it. And it was a lot of, okay, I got to do this piece, I got to do this, but I worked on it. So it's setting it up, it's giving yourself the time that it needs, and then picking one money tip that you can try in the next week. And that could be whatever tip works best for you. I also want to let you know that we have a blog where you can learn more about anything when it comes to personal finance. We have blogs on saving, budgeting, retiring, credit scores. So I invite you to take a look, which is blog.hucu.org. And a great service that we have available to you is Greenpath Financial Wellness. They are accredited credit counselors that also provide budgeting and federal student loan counseling. So if you want someone to help you go through your budget one-on-one, I recommend giving them a call. It is free to you. It's a service that we pay for at the credit union so that it's available to everyone here. And a quick disclaimer, we did not provide any tax advice, or I should say I did not provide any tax, legal, or investment advice. We do recommend that you seek out certified professionals for your specific situations. And thank you for just being a part of today's presentation. For those that are watching at home, thank you for taking the time to watch. And if you have any questions at any point, we're here to help you, and you can contact us at hucu.org. We're on all social platforms at myhucu, and you can also send us an email or give us a call. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and remember that budgeting, it's a day-to-day process. So keep at it, and you're on your way to saving and reaching that financial goal. Thank you, everyone.